Before we get to this episode, I want to ask all of our holy brothers and sisters who are watching this to leave a comment on this YouTube video. Again, we will give a winner $250. We'll pick one comment that will win. But like this, a lot of people are going to be watching this episode. A lot of people who had a really, really hard year. Simply in the comments, write a message of strength, of chizuk. Something that someone can see and just be inspired by. It might not be easy. It might not be something that comes to your head right away. But take a few seconds and just write something beautiful, because there are going to be hundreds of thousands of people that come to this episode from all different types of background. Let's show them how beautiful the Jewish people are, how beautiful we are. Write a message of chizuk, a message of strength, of why we are the greatest nation in the world. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Meaningful People podcast. Around a year ago, on this English date, we turned our phone on to one of the most awful things that we've ever seen. October 7th, the tragedy in Eretz Yisrael on Simchas Torah. And on this week's episode of Meaningful People, we had the opportunity to speak to three people who played a huge role in that day of survival for so many in Eretz Yisrael, and for all too many, the day of destruction. We sat down with Avi Kahn, a soldier for the IDF, Yossi Landau, the head of ZAKA in the south, and Rav Shlomo Katz, a Rav in Efrat. Three different roles, three different perspectives. This is a heavy episode. Viewers' discretion is advised. I want to give a big thank you to my friends at Korn Publishers who made this episode happen. You know, there's a book, One Day in October, that was published in Hebrew and has been translated now to English. The book was put together by Yair Agmon and Araya Mevorach. They have sold 50,000 copies of this book so far. If you want to get your hands on it, you could hit the link in the show notes below. Big thank you to Alex as well for helping us put this episode together. Thank you, Isaac Newman, for sponsoring this episode. L'zecher nishmas, his mother, Choma Paral Malkolea, Bas Ari Leib, Neshama Shehaven Aliyah. This is One Day in October, part 1. There will be a part 2 to this episode with 3 other guests that will be coming out Motzei Simchas Torah, the Hebrew yard site of these atrocities. Before we get to this episode, a quick word from my friends at Shuvu. Rav Palm understood that the war starts in the classroom. Making sure that our Jewish neshamas aren't in public school, they are in yeshivas. And that is what Shuvu has been doing ever since. You know, after October 7th, there's been something we spoke about a lot here, which is a spiritual revolution. People coming back to learn about their Yiddishkeit. Could be for the first time, it may be another try. And Shuvu is there. I want to tell you this staggering number. Over 1,200 new students have been taken out of the public school system and put into yeshivas thanks to Shuvu. And they can't do this work without you. They are running a $2.5 million charity campaign. That is charity.com/Shuvu. October 6th and October 7th, you have the ability to have a serious impact on the work they do. Rav Palm made it his life's mission and his legacy that Jewish neshamas belong in yeshivas, not in public school and no other schools. They belong in yeshivas, they belong in Beis Yaakovs, they belong in our Jewish schools. So make sure you have a chelek in that today. Hit the link in the show notes below and give to Shuvu. This episode was made possible by our friends at Kolel Chabad. Download right now the Kolel Chabad Pushka app. Go to pushka.cc/meaningful. Before every major moment in your life, you want to have that Pushka on your phone. Your daughter's going on their first date. You're going on your first date, maybe. You're about to go into a big business meeting. You're about to step into Yom Kippur davening. You head to that Pushka app. You give $1, you give $2, you give $3, and it goes up and up and up. And when you reach a certain amount, you empty that pushka and you give it to Kol Chabad. You give it to their life-saving work, making sure that nobody goes hungry in Eretz Yisrael. They have over $100 million budget. They are doing amazing work. And it is in your pocket. The Pushka app is in your pocket. Every single one of us has the ability to download this app and give. You wake up in the morning, you say, thank you, Hashem, give $1. You go to sleep at night, you say, thank you, Hashem, for this day, you give $1. That is made possible by the Pushka app. So go ahead and download it, pushka.cc/meaningful. You are listening to the Meaningful People podcast.
The podcast featuring our nation's most impactful, influential,
and meaningful people. Well, I'm sitting here with Avi Kahn, all the way again from Eretz Yisrael. Avi, thank you for taking the time to speak to me. For our listeners, if you can, just sort of by way of introduction, a little bit about, who you are and what your role has been in Eretz Yisrael since October 7th.
Of course. So my name is Avi Kahn. I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio. I came here like a lot of people after high school, graduated high school, came here for yeshiva. Went to yeshiva in Yerushalayim, went Shana Aleph, Shana Bet, decided to join the army. I served as a paratrooper in the Tzanchanim Brigade, the paratrooper brigade. Finished, made Aliyah, eventually made my way to Beit Shemesh, where I met my lovely wife, Hadassah. We were married in 2021, and I've been living here ever since. I work in video production. I still, I've been very active in Miluim, in reserve duty, since I got out of the army. That's something I made sure my wife knew when we were dating, when we were engaged. I, that made sure that she knew that I was very active in Miluim, and that, God forbid, when something happens one day, I'm assuming that I'll be involved. And that takes us to October 7th.
Yeah. I mean, before we get there, you are what I imagine they call like a lone soldier.
I was a lone soldier, correct. So actually, when you get married, you lose the lone soldier status, if I remember correctly. But when I served in the army, when I had my active service after yeshiva, so I was considered a lone soldier, and I even lived in one of the lone soldier buildings in Arnona in Yerushalayim, and I was very active in that community for a long time, and I still am. Okay,
amazing. But again, before we get to October 7th, what went into the decision for you to join the army? From Columbus, Ohio? War is not something that you ever had to grapple with there at all. When you get to Israel and then you make that decision to join the army, where'd that come from?
It's a good question. I think there was a few things there. Number one, I was raised, Baruch Hashem, by my parents, very pro-Israel, very Zionist, very just with very, very strong values about Eretz Yisrael and the Jewish people. And that mixed with eventually taking a trip to Poland and seeing the destruction of our people in the many camps for myself, seeing it with my own two eyes. And then after that, when I was in Shana Aleph, that was the year 2015, and that was what some people call the stabifada, or a version of an intifada, where there were many, many stabbing attacks, a couple of which I actually witnessed myself, and rammings and all kinds of just a real escalation of violence in Yerushalayim. And so I think those things kind of all converged and made me want to do more and play some kind of role in the safety and the protection of the Jewish people. And I knew that was something that I'd be able to, B'ezras Hashem, pass to my kids one day.
Wow. So it's October 7th, and I imagine you are in shul like everybody else. So you're waking up in the morning. I guess take us through those moments through your eyes.
So October 7th, the morning of, I was up earlier than most. I volunteer part-time as a medic for United Hatzalah here in Beit Shemesh. And so I was up a little early that morning responding to a call, actually right as the attack began at around 6:30. So I'm driving around Beit Shemesh and on Simchas Torah morning, and I start hearing boom, 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 just a lot of booms coming from the south. And we're used to in Beit Shemesh here and there hearing the Iron Dome go off, that sound of a missile exploding another missile in midair. But, you hear one boom, two booms. I don't think I've ever heard more than two Iron Domes go off at one time in Beit Shemesh. And this was just constant, constant shelling, boom, boom, boom. And so, myself and everyone else kind of understood that something else was going on. And I head back after the emergency call. And I get home and I start having breakfast. I still wasn't sure exactly what was going on, obviously, and a lot of people were confused. But I get home and just assume that I'm going to shul, as usual in an hour or two. And eventually I get a call from my commanding officer, and he says, Avi, we're checking that everybody's on ready. We're putting you on standby, and there's something going on. And I think he even used the word Yom Kippur Shtaim, which he was referring to like a second version of the Yom Kippur War, which kind of hit me hard, like, okay, something else is really going on here. And at around 10:30 in the morning, I got, I wouldn't say an official call up, and I hope to come back to that in my story, but I got a text on WhatsApp saying that the entire battalion has been called up and to report to base as soon as possible. And and that will be assigned a mission as soon as we get there.
And it's obviously something that is quite unusual. It's Yom Tif, and it's like any other Yom Tif there. You're getting ready to go to shul, and your wife is maybe also as well. It's Simchas Torah, and then all of a sudden things change so quickly in just a second. Mm-hmm. What was there a moment between you and your wife when she realized what was happening, that you'd be going? What was that like?
So my wife, Baruch Hashem, is a strong Israeli. She was born and raised here, and so the concept of me having to go to war, also because we had discussed it before, wasn't totally foreign to her. And she grew up in Israel, learning about the wars and about reserves and husbands leaving their wives and their kids, and so it wasn't a totally new concept to her. And so she was very, very strong. At the same time, she was 7 months pregnant at the time with our first child. And so I think that added an entirely different dynamic into the situation. And so leaving was intense. She was very, she saw me getting ready. She saw me getting my gear together and quickly getting in uniform. And, she managed to stay calm. And then obviously when the moment comes to leave, and she with her entire family, we were at my in-laws for Simchas Torah. She with her entire family kind of realized the gravity of what's happening. So obviously that moment got pretty intense.
Is that a moment for you that there's just sort of adrenaline that's pumping through your veins, and it's not much, thinking of what you're about to do, or did you have the time to think of, wow, like this is real?
That's a great question. I've spoken plenty about this. I've never spoken about this specific feeling, but I'll tell you, Nachi, I didn't feel adrenaline. I didn't feel scared or worried. I really just felt anger. I felt like something bad was happening in the country. I'd started to see some videos come out of Israelis and soldiers being kidnapped and killed. And I was angry that there was something that was now pulling me away from my family, from my wife who was pregnant, and that it was pulling me away and sending me face first into war. And that really upset me. It upset me that people were hurting my people, that my people were under attack, that there were people suffering on Simchas Torah. And it upset me that I had to be taken away from my family. And so that, I don't know if you could call that adrenaline, but I was definitely eager to get to what was going on.
So those moments where you get to base and you report, I guess, perhaps you're with a unit that you're familiar with, guys that you knew, that you remembered. What were you being told by your commanders? What were you heading into? Mm-hmm.
So we showed up to base along with hundreds of other people, and some were officially called up by the army and had permission and orders to be there, and some, like our battalion, had no official orders but were told to come in anyway by our battalion commander. That's a whole different story. But we get there, and at first everything is more or less chill, more or less business as usual, and people are trying to sign on gear and get signed up at the front desk, if you will. And, saying hi to each other. We haven't seen each other in a month or two, and what's going on. And so it seems kind of, again, business as usual when we first get there. And then around an hour in or so, our battalion commander says, everyone get around me in a circle right now. And we do. And he says, you guys don't understand what's going on in the South. Our brothers and sisters are being slaughtered as we speak. There's no time to do anything. There's no time for dilly-dally. You have your gun. You have your magazines of ammunition. You get on the Humvees, get on vehicles, and we're going down south. We're not waiting for anything else.
Wow. Well, what did that make you feel when he said that to you?
So I think that's the first moment where it really hit us. Number one, what was happening in the country, but also number two, that we were about to play a massive role on a historic day that we obviously at that time didn't process, and it would take weeks and weeks for us to process what we had done on that day and in the following days. But that was the first time where we really realized, and where it really hit us, that, okay, this is something completely unprecedented, something next level that none of us have ever been a part of. And we were just eager. We were eager to get down and help and do whatever we could to help the situation.
So when you got down south, what were you met with?
We drove down south. There was a little checkpoint of some police cars that were set up in around Ashkelon on the highway, and a little north of Gaza. And they were doing two things. They were stopping any cars, any civilians from driving further down south past that checkpoint. And they were also calling and waving down any cars that were south of them to come up to them and to get to safety and to hopefully report on what was happening. And there were ambulances there already with some injured. And we passed the checkpoint. And after a minute or two past the checkpoint, we realized that we had driven directly into an intense active war zone. There were mortars and rockets falling in the fields next to us. Fields were on fire, cars were on fire. There were bodies everywhere of civilians, of children, of soldiers, of terrorists. And we were getting reports that there were terrorists still running around in the area. We saw terrorists, lying down, being arrested by police at a bus station on the side. We got reports that there were terrorists dressed up as IDF soldiers waiting to ambush us. And you could hear gunfire, and it was just really, jaw dropping to us. And we realized, like, okay, we're not going to a rendezvous point. We're not going to a base. We are now already in active combat with weapons that we hadn't checked, with sights that we hadn't aligned correctly, with gear. We didn't have body armor. Our weapons weren't clean. In fact, a lot of them were dirty, and notoriously the weapons in reserve duty, you get them dirty and malfunctioning, and a lot of them have to be switched out, or it's not until you clean them that they actually start to function properly. And the sights weren't aligned. But as our battalion commander said, there was no time, there was not a second to waste. And so that's where we found ourselves at that time on October 7th. And we continued to drive south, passing different kibbutzim and different yeshuvim.
Has that been something that you had to experience before, kind of going into an active war zone on the drop of a dime like that? Like, it sounds like your mission was go in there and save people.
Yeah. So a lot of us in the battalion, everyone had served in different places in their active service, but a lot of us had experienced varying levels of combat before and various missions in different circumstances. And some people hadn't experienced anything. Some people had experienced very much. Some older people had experienced previous wars, like the Second Lebanon War or Operation Protective Edge, the Gaza War in 2014. So there were various levels of experience, but nothing like this. I don't think anyone had ever experienced anything like this. And we know now that there was nothing in Israel's history that was exactly like October 7th. And so that's what we were. That's where we all found ourselves, in a situation that we had never been before. And you're right. We weren't given any mission. We weren't given any orders. We were told by our own battalion commander, who had no orders himself, to drive south. And we drove kibbutz by kibbutz by kibbutz, just finding out where we could be the most helpful, the most relevant, where maybe there was a place where soldiers hadn't gotten to yet, where there was still killing going on and still suffering. And eventually we made our way to Kfar Azza, and that's where we stopped.
So you get to Kfar Azza, and what was going on in Kfar Azza at that point when you arrived?
So Kfar Azza, we get there. It's clear at the beginning that we are the largest force there, if not the only force. It turns out that there were a few police officers that went in earlier in the morning, along with the civilian response team of Kfar Azza that had fought there already. And there was a small team of soldiers from the unit Maglan of Israeli commandos that were fighting there, a very small team at that moment. But we were the only real cavalry, if you will, that had showed up at that time, and we heard that there was still active fighting going on inside of the kibbutz. And we were told by now the division commander, who is very high up. He's the commander of the entire 98th Division of the IDF, and he heard that he had one of his battalions in Kfar Azza that had just showed up, one of his reserve battalions. And so he got there as fast as he could. He had been in the south since early in the morning, and he told us, I need you guys here. I need you now. There are still people dying, being killed, being murdered inside of this kibbutz. There are Hamas terrorists waiting for you. They're killing as much as they can before you get there, and they're waiting to ambush you, but there's no choice. And he said it's your privilege. He said it's your privilege to be here on this historic day, and it's your privilege to now fight for your people, for the Jewish people. And he said, get in two lines. And he said, march into the kibbutz. Get in two lines, march into the kibbutz, and take it back for Am Yisrael.
What was that like? I can see you're kind of like going back into that moment in your memory, what was that like? I guess the operation of taking back Kfar Azza.
And in that moment, it hit us again that we were now going into something even more intense. And, every single time we got one of these small updates, we realized that the situation was more and more serious. And so now we realized that, we're not going to switch out some force that had already fought or to hold a certain area. We were going into active combat with terrorists. And we also knew how important that was. And I don't know a single person that shied away, that stayed behind, that was too scared, that every single person knew that we had a job to do and knew how important it was that we do that job. And so we did exactly what the division commander said. We got in 2 lines. We marched down into Kfar Azza. There's around a half-kilometer stretch of road that leads into the kibbutz from where we were. And after a few minutes of walking, a few short minutes, 3-4 minutes, we were engaged by our first terrorist, who we were able to neutralize. We were then engaged by another terrorist that was waiting to ambush us in a small area of bushes. We were able to neutralize him as well. And that began our 3 days of fighting in Kfar Azza and moving through the kibbutz piece by piece, taking it back, slowly clearing it from Hamas. There were a couple nights where they tried to mount counterattacks. Their goal was to legitimately hold that territory for as long as they could, to not only bargain with hostages that they kidnapped, but also with territory that they were holding. And so they tried multiple times to take back the kibbutz, which we were Baruch Hashem able to thwart those attempts, along with the help of there were now helicopters in the area and tanks and things that you would never expect to see inside of Israel's borders. And those were our few days of fighting. And Tuesday night we were able to mark it as safe.
I think that's maybe something that a lot of people weren't aware of, is that you were in Kfar Azza for 3 days. It wasn't as simple as going in, taking care of business, and that's it. This sounds like, how big is Kfar Azza? It's not a large area.
No, Kfar Azza is not a large area. I think you're talking around 700 inhabitants, give or take. Last time an official count was done. But when you get to that amount of houses, and there was, now unfortunately a lot of people know a large student dormitory there, and youth dormitory that unfortunately took a very heavy blow. And I think just the challenges of this kind of warfare in general is that you have to clear house by house. You have to go into every single house, every single nook, every cranny. And once you leave, if you don't leave a person there, if you're not enough people to leave forces there, so it has to be cleared again the next day or the next night, or a terrorist could run right back into that building where you were and literally run circles around us, which happened to us over the course of those days, just firing at us from all directions. And so until you're really sure that you've gotten all of them, they could be anywhere. It's 360 degrees of fighting inside of your own territory, inside of Israeli territory. And I think that's one of the reasons that made it so complex for those 3 days.
Was there a moment for you, after this fighting began? I can't imagine what your eyes had to see, what you had to do. Was there a moment for you where it all just kind of came crashing down and it registered with what was actually happening, what was going on? Mm-hmm. For some people it might be they go to bed, they go into the shower, and everything that they were fighting, everything that they were being strong for, broke them down. What was that your experience like?
So when we were going through it, and I think a lot of soldiers will report feeling the same thing, you don't have time and you don't have the luxury of processing what you're seeing, of what you're witnessing. It's just, you're operating almost on autopilot, on automatic, and there's a job to do and you do it and you see things and you move on, and there's no time to process. And so for those 3 days of fighting, it was, there were even downtimes that we had. We were just happy to get maybe 30 minutes of rest, and or times we were able to just have a conversation with a friend over those 3 days, and that was just everything calm, everything. We obviously hadn't processed what we were seeing over those 3 days. It was combat, and it was trying to get the job done and trying to get home safely to our loved ones. And I think the first moment that it hit me Number one, I think there are people, everyone varies. There were hundreds of people in the battalion on that day, and I think between 200 and 300. And so everybody experiences it differently. And some people, I think to this day, still haven't processed what they saw in Kfar Azza. And but for me, I think when we were able to mark it as safe on that Tuesday night, and we had another unit come and switch us out and hold our position, so we were able to be driven to a base a little further up north and shower and eat a regular meal for the first time since Simchas Torah, and sleep a little bit. So when we got on that bus, and we were handed a fresh meal from some volunteers from United Hatzalah that were waiting outside of Kfar Azza, we got on the bus, and that's when I think it started to hit me, and I think it hit a lot of other people as well. Some are smiling, some are crying, some are laughing, just happy to be alive and safe after what we had been through. And it was, that bus ride was a very intense moment, and some just sat in silence. And so everyone experienced it differently, but that's it.
Yeah. What was, I guess, the moment you're able to again speak to your wife again or see your wife again after going through what you had gone through?
So I was sent home actually for that Shabbos. I was sent home, I believe, Friday morning to get some treatment in my neck. I have some disc problems in my neck, and so it started flaring up, and they had asked me to go get some treatment. So I was actually home for that Shabbos, where a lot of soldiers in my unit were not off for Shabbos. We were actually sent to the north at that point to be on standby for all kinds of things that were expected to happen in the north. And I don't remember saying a single word the entire Shabbos. I think maybe I exchanged a few words with my wife, but there was nothing. There was really nothing to be said. There's nothing that could possibly be understood by people that weren't there, that didn't know. And I think that's true even now. We're on October 7th now, and there's only so much that people that weren't there can comprehend and truly understand and internalize. And so I think the people that were there on that day in Kfar Azza and Be'eri and Nachaloz and all the other places where there were tragedies on October 7th and fighting on October 7th, I think even for them, there's just only so much that can be discussed even now.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, obviously we've been seeing and hearing a lot that soldiers have been going through afterwards, mentally, having to deal with what they went through. It's sort of like the silent war that's been going on. Mm-hmm. How have you taken care of yourself? How do you take care of yourself with all that you went through?
It's a good question. The Army, the IDF is notoriously bad at dealing with the mental side of things, at least in past wars. And this war, thank God they've been doing a much better job. Still a long way to go, and still a lot more that they can be doing. But the amount of mental trauma, as you said, Nachi, it was just unprecedented from October 7th and from the war that followed and that we're still currently in. Just the amount of people that need that help and need that treatment really could not be expected, and so it's definitely a problem. Me personally, I really value talking, number one, to people that I care about, that are close to me, like my wife, like my parents, my friends. But I think what's really been the best for people, I don't want to speak for everybody, but definitely for me and for a lot of people that I know, is speaking to other people that were there with you on that day, or other people that were in other places and experienced similar things, similar experiences, to the point where actually at one point, I haven't done it in some time, but I started organizing groups of soldiers that had fought on October 7th and in Gaza, and people that had maybe lost friends, just Motzei Shabbos, to get together and to talk over a slice of pizza and a beer and just talk to one another. And I found that was really helpful to myself. I put it together more selfishly because I wanted to talk to people, but for other people as well. Yeah. It was cathartic. It was important. And so for soldiers listening to this, I really do, if you're having trouble, obviously professional help is important and recommended. But talking to friends that either that were there with you on that day or with other people, I think can really be a game changer and a big help.
That's really beautiful. I want to ask you about the resilience of the Jewish people that you've been able to sort of see over these, over this year. Is there a moment, is there a story, or just something that sticks out to you when you think about the past year and the resiliency of who we are?
The amount of stories I could tell you about. I think it's definitely been a roller coaster year for the Jewish people and the people of Israel. There have been many, many downs. With those downs, there have been ups. With those negatives, there have been positives. I just think the overwhelming support that we get from everybody, not just the Jewish people in Israel, but the Jewish people worldwide, the amount of letters I've gotten from kids, the amount of videos, the sandwiches, the gear, the people paying for my coffee in the cafe. The amount of support we get is really unbelievable, and we feel it. And soldiers going in feel it. We have people trying to just multiple people competing to give us a barbecue for when we get out of Gaza for a few days. And so the amount of chesed that has really just come out of the Jewish people has been really, really inspiring. And it's something that I know kept me and a lot of other soldiers going throughout the course of the entire war.
What would you say is a message that you'd want to say to all of Am Yisrael that's listening? Maybe a lot of people don't live in Eretz Yisrael, live in America, live in Europe, but Jews who care deeply about Eretz Yisrael, care about the Jewish people. What message would you want to sort of leave them with here?
There's a lot I could say about resilience and being inspired and knowing that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and to be strong. But what I'd really like to say, especially to Jews in the diaspora, is I'd like to stress how important it is to feel connected to the Jewish people and especially the people of Israel at this moment. You should not feel that, you're Jews over there in the US and the UK and Canada, and those are the people of Israel and we're going to try and support them. No, that's not how people should be thinking about things. We should really feel kulanu yachad. We should feel that we're all together. We're all Jews. No matter where you live, obviously I suggest living in Eretz Yisrael, but no matter where you live, we're all together. And so you should, when we're experiencing pain, when Israel suffers a blow, so you should feel that on a personal level. And just like you feel all the downs of Israel and its people, so too you should feel the victories when something good happens, when we're able to assassinate a big leader of Hamas or Hezbollah, or where we're able, or we have a specific moment of inspiration or resilience or chesed, or when we one day very soon win this war decisively, that victory should be something that you're able to share completely as well. So feeling part of the Jewish people at this moment during this time, feeling like we're all in this together for the good and for the bad, is I think really important.
Well, Avi, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us and share, what you went through. I know it's probably not easy. And hopefully this all comes to an end very soon and we could, meet each other face to face.
Amen. Thanks so much for having me, Nachai. I appreciate it.
All the best. A shout out to my friends at Keren Hashana. Okay, so 71 years ago, the Lubavitch Rebbe made sure to institute something that makes sure every single Yid is giving tzedakah every single day. And that's really what Keren Hashana is. Rabbi Eli Stefanski says it's not about the daf, it's about the yomi. So this is the same thing with tzedakah. It's not about the amount that you're giving. It's the fact that you should be giving to tzedakah every single day. And that's what Keren Hashana is. And it's really something to think about, because even if we do resolve to say, we're going to give tzedakah every single day, it's sometimes very easy to forget. So that's where Keren Hashana comes in, and this is how it works. Head to mykarenhashana.com. You can hit a link in the show notes of this episode and sign up. Become a giver. The money is distributed by the Machne Israel Chabad headquarters in support of the Shluchim and all of the Shluchim activities around the world. Make sure to go to mykarenhashana.com today. Become a giver. Become a giver every single day. Not one day should go by where you are not a giver. And that's what Keren Hashana is all about. That is what the Rebbe instituted 71 years ago. So, you're driving in that parking lot once again. Season's going out, your grocery of choice. And you're backing into the spot and you thought there was more room. And boom, you hit the car. Well, you take out that notepad, which you've done before because this isn't the first time. And you start writing a note, you leave your phone number, you say, I'm so sorry. Maybe you even leave a smiley face. You put that note in the windshield and you go on your day. Well, weeks pass, months pass, maybe even a year, and nobody has reached out to say, hey, you hit my car and I need to be paid back for that. And you're not feeling so comfortable about that because you damaged someone's property and now it's Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur time and you owe somebody something. Well, insert nechtal. Nechtal is the halachic solution for people who owe somebody money but can't find them to pay them back. You give the right amount that you owe to nechtal, and the group of Bezdin withhold that money for the rightful owner, and they even give out that money as interest-free loans to people who are in need. This is a beautiful organization that is backed by leading Rabban Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein, Harav Meir Tzvi Bergman, Harav Michal Steinmetz. This organization is one like I've never heard before, and they are really addressing an important need. Whether it's an unpaid wage, damaging someone's property, you give the money to nechtal, that money is held. And it speaks about this in Gemaras, about how this is what you need to do when you can't find the person that you're supposed to pay back. Go ahead to Nechtal's website. Hit the link in the show notes below. If you're not sure exactly how much you're supposed to be giving, give them a call today. That phone number is down below in the description in the show notes of this episode. Make sure to go ahead and give them a call to find out. But thank you, Nechtal, for being there for us. I'm sitting here with Yossi Landau from ZAKA. The last time we had a conversation was not too long after October 7th, which is almost a year ago, believe it or not. And that conversation we had was seen and heard by around 500,000 people. The stories you shared and the things that you had to see and go through, it really touched the hearts of many. And here we are a year later now. And wanted to sit down with you and sort of hear from your perspective, what does October 7th, 2024, what does Simchas Torah 2024 bring up for you? What does it mean to you?
Okay, so thank you for having me. And I'm very happy and very glad that you mentioned Simchas Torah, not October 7th.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's Simchas Torah. And we will continue and we'll have it as a Simchas Torah. It's not an easy year that went through for a lot of us, especially for, forget about me, but for my team, for the people in Israel, and for our nation. A lot of casualties, a lot of going to Levias and going and being in the bloodshed every day. It's really not easy, but you always have to look on the half a full cup. The things that we saw in the last year, I don't think I'm not sure that these kind of stories or these kind of heroes or anything we would be able to see if not a Simchas Torah from last year. And you see people, if it's communities, not only people, and that I'm involved with them, that they didn't know anything about, say, Yiddishkeit, nothing. They didn't even have a mezuzah on the door. And we know that from all the kibbutzim that we were in over there. Now they are such a close friends. And I'll just give you a small story. In one of the kibbutzim, and I wouldn't mention which one, they were very, very anti-Haredi, anti-religious, and anti-everything that had to do. And they had the I think the biggest massacre was in Simchas Torah was in that kibbutz, when a lot of them were kidnapped and still in hostage, and still in Gaza, and a lot of them were killed, families, and they didn't even want for us to come in and clean the blood, and that's a part of our mission.
Because of your
because they say, we don't need it, we don't believe in anything. They even had 6 of those people that were killed, that were murdered over there, they were signed off to burn the body. And we went out to the family and convinced them, and they had a burial, a Jewish burial, a normal burial, and Levaya, everything was with Kaddish and everything. That's a miracle for itself. But when we came and we asked them, let's go, we want to clean up the blood because we know ki adamu nefesh, the blood has to be buried.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a part of it. No, we don't need it. We're going to handle it. And one day I was approached by one of the families that the entire family, father, mother, and 3 children, they were slaughtered and killed in that house. And I was there. I took them out. We couldn't go into that house because it was burned, and they were in the shelter room. In the shelter room, the door was closed from the heat. It was like melted. You couldn't open the door, and they were in that room when they were shot. And so I went from the window. And it was not an easy job to take them out and to honor them and to give them the respect, but we did it. So one of the family members approached me and asked me, they want me to come and clean up the blood over there. So I told them, the management of the kibbutz, they won't allow us. Don't worry, we'll take care of us. So we came. I came with a crew, and we went in and we did the job. We did everything what we were supposed to do. And then I started a conversation with the kibbutz, and going again. It's the same conversation, but I said I'm not gonna let it go. So I came again and again, and one day, while I had sitting with them and on the grass and with older people, and you're talking older people that some of them they know learning Gemara, but they could till now, I would say they had no problem to eat chazer in Yom Kippur. It's something. But after 2 hours of having a conversation, we all started to cry in each other, and we became best buddies. We became friends. And the day later, about 9:30 in the evening, all of a sudden, I receive a voice note in my phone from a person, and I saw him over there. He's a younger guy. I saw him the day before in the kibbutz. He was from the kibbutz. His father was killed, and others of families. But I saw him without a yarmulke, but with tzitzis, and he was listening to our conversation. He didn't come into a conversation, and he left me a message of 3 minutes, and crying that he saw and he felt the love that I gave them for those people that are so not connected, and now we connected to each other. it changed his life, and he's gonna try to do everything. And the next step, what happened, that kibbutz asked me, and they ordered 150 mezuzahs, and they gave me a list, exactly all the houses that we should come and clean. We went to clean up those houses. So when you look at something like this, you see that unfortunately something had to happen, and we don't understand the Darkei Hashem, the path that Hashem gives us to go through and to have everything. And you see it all over. Unfortunately, you see the other side too. If you're looking at it, so I'm not looking on the other side. I'm just looking in the half a full cup of water, and we have it a lot with our volunteers. We went through a lot, and we're still going through. A lot of our volunteers are not capable to keep up with their mission in life, and we know the mission in life is to raise the children and to have a normal, and
they're traumatized from that, from what they had to do.
That's correct. Traumatized what they had to do and what they had to see, and what we had to deal with it afterwards. And like I would say 5 months after Simchas Torah, one day I received a phone call from a lady. I don't know the phone number. It's like, and she told me she saw an interview with me by the Nova Festival. Next to her, a picture. There's all the pictures of the people there, and next to her son. And now it's 5 months, and she never heard nobody told her how he was killed, what happened to him. So I told him, okay, I don't know your son. You have to give me some information. So she sent me a picture of her son. And also she sent me some sign. He had a tattoo on his foot, a colorful tattoo. And over here, and on his foot, also a small tattoo. So I told her, listen, I'm going to look around and I'll see what's... After 10 minutes, just going through my gallery, and boom, the picture comes up. And I remember what happened to her. So I called her back and I told her, okay, I want to come and meet you in person. So she told me, I live in Kiryat Chaim. Kiryat Chaim is next to Haifa in the north, and you're in the south. I told her, I want to come and meet you in person. So she said to me, why? Told me, I want to meet a mother that raised and born such a holy kid. She was like, I wasn't sure if she's crying or she's laughing at me, but there's some emotion. So she gave me her address, and I drove down to Kiryat Chaim. I knocked on the door. I told her, listen, I showed her the pictures from her son, where we found him. And I told her the story that your son saved hundreds of lives. Why? We found him. He ran from the Nova Festival about 1 kilometer. It's 1.5 miles into the woods. And we found him over there by himself. He was shot in the back. And while we were starting to give him the respect, from nowhere, 2 terrorists, armed, fully jumped out from a hiding spot. They were waiting over there to go out for another massacre when everyone is busy to go.
So they're waiting for the ZAKA members. They're waiting for that.
Or ZAKA members or army, whatever. And they were shot in the spot. And from the army people that covered our backs. But I would say that this kid saved a lot of people from being killed. When I told her that,
But you're saying because if not for him,
if
those
not for
terrorists
him,
would have been.
they would come in and they would kill.
How many
and
days after October 7th was that?
That was the next day.
It was the next day.
It was the next day.
And you guys, I mean, for you were face to face with a terrorist there.
All the time from the beginning. We were from when I arrived over there in the morning, Simchas Torah in the morning, Shabbos, I was face to face, and by Wednesday we still had in Kfar Azza we had a clash with 2 terrorists. That's on Wednesday.
Yeah,
and not talking about Sunday, Monday, every day we had. But you had to see that woman. That 5 months she was like depressed, and now the smile on her face, and she decided on the spot. She never kept Shabbos. She decided on the spot she's keeping Shabbos.
Wow!
And every Friday she calls me, and we make sure that she goes to classes, and now she has a normal. A Jewish home.
Wow, that's remarkable.
So for us, this is the little light in the darkness, and we just have to hope. We know right now, what we're talking, it's not an easy time for us. We have in the north, and that any minute we don't know what's going to happen, and it's happening. And we have to stay together. We have to know that we have to do the best for each other. And this is the way that we're going to win this war. Because if not, it's going to be an endless war. And a lot of casualties that we have. Talking about almost 800 soldiers. And the hostages that they're not back, that we praying every day for them to come back home and to be united with the families. And we should all have a normal life living. Sometimes the kids that being grown up like this, I don't think they'll always have something that a different life than someone that in New York or any place else that is being raised.
For you, what changed in your life from October 6th until now? Like, what has changed for you?
A lot. I won't say that I became, I don't know. People say that, first of all, I became calm, more calm. I was, I know I have to be more for other people, to listen and to try to help other people. It's basic. I took it as a mission in my life that I saw the destroying of the nation, of our people, and of the houses and communities. Everything was destroyed. Now you have to be there by building back. So I would tell you that I took something that people they won't believe it, but I decided it's a part of our therapy too, for our people, and it helps to go and be over there by the kibbutzim and all these places and to rebuild the houses and to rebuild the communities, so we have a daily basis, our people, our volunteers, and it's in shifts. They come, they paint the houses, they do everything in trying to rebuild.
So rebuilding it, wow.
Because if you saw the destroyal, then you have to be by the rebuild too. And like it says, if somebody that Beis Hamikdash wasn't built in his generation, then it's like it's like
they saw the destruction.
So we were there by the destruction. We want to be by the rebuild, and it helps us also because we know we come back to the same place when we all thought and we were all sure that this is the end, and now we're coming back. So for me is listening more, and for sure to be more with the family, because I don't remember what I said in that, but I still see it as and every time that I'm talking, I'm getting more emotional, because I think this is the most punishment. If you want to punish someone, and we know that we see that by couples they're not living together, the punishment is not be able to see the kids and not be able to raise the kids and not to be with them by the fun. And if this happened to me for over 13 weeks, that I couldn't look at them, and for me was a punishment that I say I will never forget. And a punishment is you get it, you receive a punishment only if you deserve it, and I'm sure I deserved it because I wasn't enough for them till October 7th, till Simchas Torah. So now I have to take it.
You're there for them now.
I'll be there for them now, and I'll do everything for my kids. And I would say Am Yisrael is like my kids. We all kids. We all brothers.
Yeah.
So we have to be to each other, and that's my mission in my life.
Yeah, I remember you did say in the interview that you couldn't bring yourself to look at your kids, grandkids, like it's something that whatever you went through on that day just prevented you from doing. That's what you're alluding to.
Correct.
For the members of ZAKA that are still dealing with such a pain, and there's many soldiers as well that are,
It's not only that, it's also something that nobody's talking about it.
It's almost like a silent war.
It's the silent war is the suicide that on daily basis that we have from post-trauma people that I'm blessed that I'm in an organization that they care about us and everyone is being treated, but there's a lot of people that they don't belong to anything and they were exposed to this. If it's soldiers and the army, unfortunately, they don't have.
They're not equipped to deal with it. Yeah.
They're not equipped. Not in the middle of the war. It's still war, so they're very busy. And we have an everyday basis. Almost every day, our people, our volunteers are going out and always open up the wounds, and to cover your wounds, and it's going to take you now another couple of days. So we like back and forth. Finally, you got to sleep to get after you were treated. And I'm sure Tisha B'Av was very bad for everyone. Is not a happy day, but I had a very unhappy day, very, very unhappy day in Tisha B'Av. And what happened was, the first day when I went into Be'eri, Sunday morning, October 8th, Sunday morning, I was almost by myself with another couple of soldiers, special Shaldak team that we went into Be'eri. I went into a house. I didn't talk about this. Didn't tell for anybody, but we went into a house and they ran out. those soldiers, they ran out. And I was wondering, why are they running out from that house? So I start to go into the house, and they try to stop me. I shouldn't go in, but I told them, why? Is there any terrorist over there? No. Yossi, don't go in. And I went in. What I saw over there, I never spoke to anybody about it, but I took up my phone. I just captured a short video what I see over there. And I gave it over for one of the officials of the government that they had to deal with. It's their decision if to expose it to the world or not. It's family involved. But I was promised that it wouldn't leak out to no place. It's confidential. Nobody's going to see it. And in Tisha B'Av, I receive somebody from the States sends me this video and asks me if this is me talking in the background. It took me, but 18 sessions with my with all kind of professionals to delete this, what I saw from my head. To 18.
And now it was being passed around.
And all of a sudden I see it. Everything came back to me. It's like I never had this 18 sessions driving to Herzliya every week and meeting with some professionals just to delete this story, because I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't anything. And now it's back. So the beginning, I told him it's AI, it's not true, it's not, and just delete it, because I hope he did it. The next thing, I called up this guy in the government, someone from the Mossad, and I asked him,
what happened? Yeah.
What happened? How did? We're gonna investigate it, and like everything else, they're investigating. But this was my Tisha B'Av, and I'm sure this happens a lot with our volunteers, and I know as a fact, because we were called back not once and not twice to come back and to talk to the families, and we have to lie to the families. And this is the flashback that we receive, and this is going to take years for us. And I hope that with the tefillos, with the praying for Klal Yisrael, and I'm sure everybody's doing that. This was my first message on Simchas Torah, 6:30 p.m. when Shabbos ended. My message was to the world, please pray for us. We should go home normal. We should stay normal. And yes, a year, for us it's like yesterday. But if you're gonna look in the half a full cup, I'm sure this is gonna help you by doing better and being a better person and helping each other and hoping Am Yisrael Chai and have Mashiach very on being the Beis Hamikdash already now for Sukkot. That's our hope.
Yossi, thank you so much for sharing, and I think we all could agree that Mashiach is the answer. It's what we all yearn for and hope for and daven for. And thank you for the work that you did, because someone had to do it. And I think it's not spoken about enough, the long-lasting effects, what you and your team did for the Kavod HaMeis, and to give respect and honor to the people who were killed the way they were killed. you did the job of Klal Yisrael, being there for our fellow Jews. So thank you for that. Thank you for sacrificing so much, because you did sacrifice a lot, and your volunteers, they sacrifice a lot more than we all can imagine. It's not just time away from family. It's mental space. It's energy. And many times it's normalcy. So,
and as I say, especially me, when I see a ZAKA volunteer, I'll bend down and I'll get a bracha from him. They can give it.
Yeah.
And we should know that we are blessed. Am Yisrael, Klal Yisrael is blessed to have these kind of people.
They really are. And they're amongst us. And they're all over.
Yep.
Shkach, thank you.
Thank you.
You know, this time of year, Sarah's made tshuva, we're thinking about the things that maybe throughout the year we haven't done all that right. But you know what? Humor me for a second and think about the things that you have done right. Maybe tzedakah, for example. It's one of the big three this time of year. We have teshuvah, tefillah, and tzedakah. Now, imagine, think about it. Could you have done it better? Did you give tzedakah with a smile on your face? Did you give tzedakah wisely? Did you make sure to give it the best way possible? That's what L'man Achai is there for. For 25 years, they have been breaking the cycle of poverty for so many families, not putting people on their shoulders, not just bankrolling their life and unfortunately seeing them again the next year in the same position. L'man Achai gives the tzedakah in a whole new way. It puts them on their feet. And now the opportunity is yours. To give somebody independence, to give them real life this year. Give to L'man Achai. Give them the ability to break the cycle of poverty. Give them the ability to put someone else on their feet. That's what happens when you support L'man Achai. Head to the show notes of this episode, hit the link. Every single dollar counts. So you might not be a great faster, or maybe after the fast, you are knocked out for at least a couple of days, you're out of commission. Well, insert Blue Glove Concierge. They are there. They are the IV drips to make sure you are hydrated with vitamins. They also have the B12 injection. There are so many things that they can do for you. You don't need to suffer anymore from fasting. You can have a meaningful and easy fast when you use Blue Glove Concierge. They come to you all over the tri-state area. Nurses come to you. I myself have used Blue Glove Concierge on more than one occasion. Their nurses are amazing. They come to you in your own living room and the comfort of your own home and make sure you are well taken care of. But listen, don't wait much longer. We advertised for them around Tisha B'Av season and they were booked up very quickly. Hit the link in the show notes of this episode below and book your appointment today with Blue Glove Concierge. They can come to you, make sure you're hydrated, make sure that you can give your all to Hashem that day and daven well. Blue Glove Concierge, making sure you are well hydrated and well taken care of. Rav Shlomo Katz, it's always an honor and a pleasure to speak to you. I don't think we've ever did this sitting in person. Rich Hashem, that should happen very soon one day. But as we're in Galus, this is what we have to do in this distance. The purpose of our conversation today is obviously we are coming up to the year point, the yard site of Simchas Torah of October 7th. Obviously, the English date is before the Hebrew date, and the world is probably going to react to both. And I want to sort of speak to you about that day last year, what that day was for you, for your community, and just talk about that a little bit.
So we're sitting here we're filming right now in our shul, the bottom floor. And so it's very easy to go right back there because it's right upstairs. By us, it was Shachris. I was doing Birkas Kohanim. It was literally towards the end of Shachris before Hallel. We were hearing some booms, but they were far. No, it's not the first time we've heard booms, but these were sounding a little bit gnarly, a little bit more intense than usual. And we were receiving, some of the people in shul that are in security were receiving some notifications, but nothing that alarming that we had to stop. We just could sense something's up. We didn't know what it was. And then I'll never forget it. Mamish. Yisa Hashem panav eilecha. That was the first siren. I'm duchening, I'm standing there. My father was visiting, we're duchening next to each other. So the whole shul has to figure out, where do you go? We have 2 bomb shelters in the shul, but they weren't enough for a few hundred people that were there already for Simchas Torah morning. So we went to the stairwell, we went back to some of the chevra went to one bomb shelter, then ran downstairs to the other. We didn't understand what was going on. And this big, like, unknown, we don't know what's happening. And suddenly walks two people from the army. One was the head of security of Efrat, and one was the head of another division here, so a guy that I knew. And they pulled me to the side. I grabbed the president of the shul and another one that's like my partner here in running things. And they said to me like this, Rav Shlomo, הקהילה שלך צריכה להבין שעם ישראל עכשיו נמצא במלחמה. He said, Rav Shlomo, you and your kehillah need to understand, Am Yisrael right now has entered into war. That's what they said. This is about, I would say 8:15 maybe, 8:20 a.m.
Wow.
And I don't remember what my initial response was. I don't remember, the emotion, because you have a rush of feelings and emotions, and you also have this massive responsibility. What do you say? What are you going to do? So I took some of my team aside. And I just told them, okay, davening we have to stop right now, communal davening. And then I asked everyone in the shul that has a weapon, if they don't have it on them, to go home and be with their weapon. And I told all the young chayalim in our shul to go home and turn on your phones.
Wow. I imagine it's the first time you, in your rabbanis, have ever had to do something like this.
100%. There's no prep for things like that. At least not for me. There was no prep for anything like this.
What's the reaction of all these young, it could be 18 years old and up, all these kids that you're telling them on Yontiv, on Simchas Torah, go home and turn on your phones?
Our young heroes are made of something that it's unexplainable. They didn't miss a beat. They didn't miss a beat. They went home, they did what they had to do. And yes, they were all called up immediately. All of them. They each started, the scene was walking back to my house and then seeing fathers packing the bags for their children and sending them off to battle. That imagery will never, ever leave me. Ever leave me. I told the shul, I don't know what's going to be, but we have to stop davening now. You have to be close to your safe rooms in your home. Another siren went off approximately half hour later. And then I told the shul that if it's quiet for the rest of the day, we'll reconvene again at Mincha. And by us, it was quiet for the rest of the day here in Efrat. At about 4:30, I think it was, or maybe it was 5, we got back together for Mincha. Some reports were coming in. Someone then came to the house and told me that it's really bad down south, that there are 40 Jews that are dead. That's all we knew.
And that was for you enough to break the heart to hear something like that.
40,
yeah.
So I gathered the shul between Mincha and Marv, and this is so surreal, because I told them all, okay, Chevra, listen, you're gonna do Havdalah soon, and then you're gonna turn on your phones, and you'll go to your screens, and you're gonna see something that you're not going to have the kalim for. And I don't understand it at all, but I just have to let you know and prepare you for hearing about 40 Jews that were killed on Simchas Torah. Okay, that's what I told them. By the time they turned on the phone, Motzei Shabbos, that number was already 130, I think, maybe even more. And it said initial reports of 40 people that were kidnapped. Those numbers rose by the half an hour. That was last year, October 7th, Simchas Torah. I also had a number of couples newlyweds, that came to the house throughout the afternoon, and the husbands were called up, and they had all these different shilas, different halachic shilas, things I never, again, like we said, these are things that you don't prepare for. And, a gadol, a real Talmid Chacham would be able to like knock these things off one after the other. Who am I? I was just trying to field it all and just be present with each person with whatever they were going through. And that was the sound of the day. And needless to say, I have my 5 kids. At the time we were 5 kids. Baruch Hashem, we have another child since. But my children, what am I saying to my children? What am I telling the shul? What am I telling the kehila? How do I be in touch? Should I have a phone on as well? All these things came up, and it all happened so fast, but it also happened in slow motion.
Right.
It's like this weird vibe of like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But like very slow, very, very slow. So needless to say, we never got to Hallel. We never got to Akafas. We never got to Tfilas Geshem.
As a Rav, having to address your kehila on something that's happening like this, you said you didn't really get to the Hakafas part. There's obviously the shuls in America here, like they got to Hakafas when the word started getting around, and it presented with a almost impossible decision. Do we dance? Do we sing? Are we happy? Are we throwing candy around? There's a war going on in the world. There's our brothers and sisters being murdered by the second. As a Rav, what do you think about that dichotomy?
I think every shul is different. Every shul has a different dynamic. Every shul has a different way of responding to fear, tragedy, and also to simcha. I think that I'm the rabbi of a community where I would say it's 80 to 85% made up of people that made aliyah over the last 10 years. I think that's a pretty safe, more or less, that's the number. People that never dealt with any type of, war. So other shuls here, the more Israeli shuls that people have been through so many different wars, it's a different sense of how to deal with things, but the dichotomy is so real. Like you want to be part of like a future Hasidic story that says, and the bombs were coming down and we kept on doing hakafas no matter what. And every boom made us jump even louder.
Right.
You want to, but in reality, you also want to make sure that you're taking all the, you're being safe. You're pashut being safe, and you're mekayim the mitzvah of nishmartem me'oden nafshosechem, especially after the army personnel comes in and tells you, let your kehila know you're in war and things must shut down right now. And the dichotomy is it's an impossible thing to say this should be in every place. It's still till today. You should know that dichotomy. What you're speaking about, that tension. It's still there.
I think that I don't know myself how this Simchas Torah is going to be. Like, what do you think it's going to be like for you, even in your kehila? Where, let me ask you: all those boys that were sent out to war, did all of them come back?
Our one grandson of one of the mitpalalim here, one of the members, did not come back. But it's crazy that we're speaking, right now that there's one boy that was called up. He's still there. He's just not in Gaza right now. He's actually in Lebanon.
Wow.
That's why, even though we're marking a year, we're not marking a year
It's not
of the end of anything.
It's not commemorating. We're in middle.
Correct. So it's still very much in the air. A ton of our boys are still in. So, to answer your question, we've already began, to discuss. We have a kollel here of guys that we started a kollel last year. And I've been discussing with the kollel chavra here, like, you're going to be future rabbanim, future mashpim. What do you think? What do you think should be done right this coming year? Do you not dance in protest to the Ribbon Shleim, saying, Ribbon Shleim, if you want us to dance, it can't be like this? Or do you dafka dance?
Right.
There's no right or wrong answers. And I've been doing my best to guide the community, actually based on a lyric of Hanan Ben Ari. Hanan Ben Ari, the sweet singer of Israel, he had a song that came out, I think, a year and a half ago. It's called Blind Bat, Atalef Iver, but it opens up by saying, Ani eneni mi she'ayiti mi shehekart. I'm not who I was, who you knew. And a chayal, a soldier that was in Gaza, he graffitied that on a wall of one of the buildings there, and he sent it to Hanan, and Hanan posted it on social media. And I think that chayal was expressing, like, wow, what war brings out in a person. We're different beings. So I'm just reminding the kehila, like, listen, whether we like it or not, we're not who we were. And when you don't know exactly who you are yet, because it's still being formed, don't dictate to yourself of this is what needs to be, and this is what needs to be expressed. Slichas, Asayis Shana, Asayis Tshuva, Yom Kippur, Sukkos. Nothing can nor should be the same. The question is, are we vulnerable enough to show up with the unknown as long as we're showing up? As long as we're showing up.
Right.
But showing up with the unknown.
You may remember that a few weeks ago we had on the founders of Guard Your Eyes on this podcast, talking about the traps of the internet, content that people should not be seeing, that unfortunately has claimed the neshamas of so many, has really pulled people in, has broken up families, has ruined relationships. This time of year, we're all about teshuvah, returning to who you really are in your essence. And Guard Your Eyes uses a Torah-based and science-based approach with their unbelievable platform to assure that happens. This is the most advanced online platform for this. It is absolutely anonymous and 100% free. And it's free because of people like you. Guard Your Eyes is running a charity campaign. Head to charity.com/GYE. That is charity.com/GYE. This is a challenge for so many in this generation. And we have the ability to do something about it. Guard Your Eyes. Support Guard Your Eyes. Make sure that everybody out there has the ability to use Guard Your Eyes for free. I know they are investing millions of dollars in the technology. I myself know the technology is not cheap. And if you go cheap, you get cheap. And this is one area that we cannot afford to go cheap in. Thank God for an organization like Guard Your Eyes. And thank you to all the donors that have made Guard Your Eyes possible. But for now, please become one of them. Head to charity.com/GYE, or head to the show notes in this episode. Yom Tov season is right around the corner and your appliances are in full force. But you got one of them that's making some noises. You got one of them that's maybe blowing some smoke. One of them is saying, I got no more in me. I can't do it anymore. That's when you call Town Appliance. Actually, before then is when you call Town Appliance. But Town Appliance understands the needs of the Jewish community, and they understand that things happen last second, and they are there for you. You're going to head to townappliance.com. Whether it's a new construction or you're trying to replace some appliances in your home, Town Appliance is the go-to place. Ever since 1979, Town Appliance has been doing this. Let me tell you something, guys. I was born in 1995. I know I'm dating myself. Town Appliance has been doing this. Wait for it. 16 years before I was born. Did I get that math right? Does someone want to fact check me? Is it 16 years? 1980, 1995, that's 15, 1970. 16 years. Yeah, I got it right. 16 years. Guess what? Math. Nobody likes doing math. And nobody likes trying to fix their appliances. And nobody likes creating their own appliances. So you go to Town Appliance and you go to math professionals and you go to a car mechanic when your car's not working. You go to the best. That is townappliance.com. Head to townappliance.com. That's something that we probably haven't had to grapple with since the end of World War II. I don't know. Like it's such a weird feeling, a weird position to sort of be in, where you're going with your families to shul, Simchas Torah, but it in a way feels a little bit like Tisha B'Av. You know, it's like, for me at least, I remember being in shul and Simchas Torah, and I heard like mumblings, or this is already like in the morning of Simchas Torah in America, so it was already late afternoon in Israel, and I heard already rumblings of something's going on. Or it was actually, rather, it was a nighttime, and it was just started out in Israel. I remember going to one of the waiters there who was setting up the Kiddush. I said, "What's going on in Israel?" He said, "You don't want to know." What do you know? What do you mean? He's like, "All I know is we have a team of waiters in Israel, and they're in a bunker the entire day so far." And then he started pulling up what happened, and the shul was just like overtaken by this news, and it's like straight out of, I don't know, the Man from Vilna, you know that song? Like, they danced around and around in circles. But like,
Oh yeah.
it was a traumatic day, I think, for all of Am Yisrael.
Yeah.
And I think everyone has their own story and version of how they went through this. But to now go back to that day, and of course it's intrinsically, it's a yontif. It doesn't feel like that.
Yeah.
I know you're saying it's not one size fit all. Everyone has to sort of do it for themselves. But people listening now, what are the marching orders? How do you approach something like that? It's as a leader of a family with kids, you know, it's just, what do you do?
Right. So two things that come to mind that I feel like sharing that would be shayach right now. One is that there are 6 new families that have made aliyah to our community since last year's Simchas Torah. To me, that's enough of a reason to do hakafas.
Yeah.
No pressure, Nach.
Though there's always pressure from you when it comes to this, and there should be.
No,
you know,
I know. You know, it's all love, and I'm always going to be myself in this regard.
100%.
So that's huge for families to pick up from Chicago, from the 5 towns, from Cherry Hill, New Jersey, from wherever they're coming. That's just any milim. I have no words to describe the immense joy that brings. And we're making a big deal of it. We're making an extra big deal out of it. Like right now, Dafka, that last year, you know, we were where we were, and this year, wow, Am Yisrael, what a secret. The other thing that comes to mind and heart right now is that I am transported back to World War II, and I'm transported back to Simchas Torah World War II, when the Eish Kodesh, Reb Chlonimus Kalman Shapira, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha Hashem Yikom Damo, he had a son that was injured in bombings that took place, I believe it was during Chol HaMoed, and his son succumbed to his wounds right before Simchas Torah. And there's a description of the Rebbe walking in on Simchas Torah night, and no one knew what it was going to be like. And the Rebbe walks in, and he doesn't say anything. I don't know for how long. I don't know how long that silence was. And then he finally gets up and he shries. He screams, Baruch Hu es Hashem Amvayrach. And they all scream back, Baruch Hashem Amvayrach La'olam Va'ed. And that was Simchas Torah. That was a kuf, that was Geshem, that was a kufis, that was yant, that was davening. I think that we're being pushed. I mean, we've been being pushed for a long time, but now more than ever that we must realize that the Ribono Shel Olam does not expect us to be robots, to be mechanical Jews. there is such an invite this year to let out things you never let out before, to express it in a manner that you never felt you had the room. And today you don't have the luxury to hold back. What that looks like, we'll see. But as long, like I said before, if we're vulnerable enough to realize we're not who we were, it's something new, and just be okay with that. Just be okay with that. Listen, I'm praying, obviously, as I'm talking to you, that this segment will be broadcasted in a world where, all of this will just be part of the past.
Yeah.
And we'll be like, wow, look how we were preparing, but look at the world we're in now. And you have to have a piece of that in you at any given moment. But as a leader of a kehillah, you have to be with people where they're at right now in the moment. And this is where we're at right now. Our boys are still on the front lines. Thousands of our brothers and sisters just 3 hours north of here are still misplaced. There's still over 100 chatufim, 100 yidden, 100 people that are in captivity. We're not who we were, and this is exactly where the Ribono Shel Olam wants us to serve him from this place.
You mentioned about, families making aliyah recently, and I think we've seen these nefesh b'nefesh flights over the last year, and it's remarkable how many people have moved. Let's talk about for a second, I guess, the resilience of the Jewish people in light of what happened. I think a lot of people would see people be broken and not be able to continue having withstood what we withstood, and that's for history, for generations already. But once again, with this massive test of not just what happened on October 7th, but what's happened every single day since, whether that's on the front lines or that's in the universities in America and or all around the world, where we're being treated like, it's signs of in the 40s or late 30s. So the resilience of the Jewish people, what have you seen over the last year?
Everything. It brings me to tears to think about it, because I cannot believe, I just can't believe that I'm part of this people that I'm being blown away by. It is so humbling. And the resilience is, you don't see this. This does not exist by any other people, by any other nation. Yishay Riba put out this beautiful song, I think it was maybe 2 years ago, Ani Shayach La'am. And he describes there what kind of am that I'm shayach, do I understand what it means to be part of Am Yisrael? I was thinking about this a lot, like the stories of the resilient Giborim, the heroes. Where do I begin? Where do I begin? Whether it's Jen Early who lost her son in the beginning of the war and what she's come out with? Is it Eliyahu Liebman from Kiryat Arba, whose son was kidnapped and he was killed? Is it that woman in Ofakim that was able to withhold the Mechabed? There's so many stories. I think the learning from that is to realize that when you walk on the streets of Eretz Yisrael and you see a guy that's walking down the street, or that woman that's crossing the street or selling you something in the makolet, you have no idea if you're in the presence of a master, of a hero. So therefore, treat everyone as if they probably are. Like, be in awe before anyone that you meet. And that you can't say that anywhere else in the world. But here, you could say that not just as a good exercise, but mamish, a practical reality, because that's what's going on here. And here. For the Yidden who are not living in Eretz Yisrael right now, not yet, they're on their way slowly. I think it's super important for Jews all around the world to constantly and consistently feel connected to the Jews in Eretz Yisrael and to what's going on in Eretz Yisrael. And I think that continues to happen, but there's always obviously that fear of it it wanes, or people want to move on in life to other things. What message would you have for Jews around the world that haven't been ZAKA yet to move to Eretz Yisrael about how to stay connected? Nachi, I feel like it used to be a time where It'd be enough to say, make sure you connect more with your local rabbi, or learn more online, or listen to that song, or I'm just going to be so blunt and emes, like, and I'm not saying this from any ounce of haughtiness. I have no idea in what merit I was privileged to move back here and live here. But now the calling is, in order to stay connected, and I'm saying this to Yidden also here, it's not enough to make Aliyah. That's not enough. That's the first stage.
Right.
The real work only starts. But I feel like we've reached that era where, unfortunately, it would have been great had we been able to va'olech otchem komemius le'artzenu, to come like, gvirim, balabatim, v'chulei, and come b'shalom, in peace, with dignity. It's just, all signs have been showing us that that's not exactly in the cards. That's not exactly in the cards. And I don't want to feel guilty that I told a Jew, listen, sign up to my YouTube channel and you'll see there's daily shooting about inspiration. I don't think that's what it's about. I think that right now we need each other more than ever. The land of Eretz Yisrael is perfect. We are not perfect. We, the individuals, we're not perfect, but the land is perfect. But I also want to encourage everyone that when they hear these types of words, to understand something. Eretz Yisrael is being rebuilt right now. It's being rebuilt on the shoulders of the heroes of the army that have given their lives so that we could live God's dreams here. There's new air here. It's a completely new air. It's hard to describe from being so far. Be part of what's being built right now, not to join what's been built until now. We had 76 years, 77 years, where something incredible was being built with a lot of what they call here concepciot, misconceptions about what's real, what's not real. There's new air, and that air is sending a message of love and of invite and of excitement to say, let's connect for real by being as close as we can to each other physically. Leman shmo be'ahava. And I would be politically correct if I'd give you any other answer. But that's just what it's my limited perspective, is what my heart feels.
I respect that. I wouldn't expect any other answer. Wouldn't want you to be politically correct in a moment like this. Rav Shlomo Katz, I really appreciate you giving us the time today. And again, it's my hope as well that this episode we could look back at it and say, oh wow, we were preparing for that. But if people are hearing this, then unfortunately that has not happened yet. And I think you laid out a lot of strength and chizuk for people and a lot of marching orders, and it should be Hashem's will that we're able to listen.
Amen. I should listen. I should listen to it more. And Nachi, I feel, even though we're thousands of miles away, I do feel that, I have a chaver in you that if you could be real with another Yid, you have the whole world. Yeah. So I thank you for just being a real chaver.
Same. I think we've only been real with each other. There's been nothing else. Only real. Rav Shlomo, thank you so much. Have an amazing day.
Behava. Love you.
Thank you so much for listening or watching this episode. I want to say that this was really surreal to sit there and record. To think that we're already a year past, and it feels like it's never ended, and it really hasn't for so many. We're still dealing with this, and hopefully by the time this comes out, we're on our way, al kanfei nesharim, Yerushalayim all together, singing and dancing with the Levim, the Kahanim, going up to that Beis HaMikdash. That's the only answer. Let's be real. Everything else is one big band-aid. I love all my advertisers, but the answer is Mashiach. That's the greatest ad I can do. I'll do that for free any day. Thank you for listening and watching this episode. We will be coming out with a part 2. 3 more guests, and that will be coming out on Matzei Simchas Torah. It is a very, very heavy one as well, so stay tuned for that. I want to say that some programming update. We will be coming out with a new episode of Meaningful People on Matzah Yom Kippur, a very special episode. So stay tuned. Hit the subscribe button on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. Make sure you are in the know when these episodes become available. Thank you so much.